We're outside the Supreme Court after the landmark decision that overturned Roe versus Wade and ended a woman's constitutional right to an abortion.
At the Supreme Court today, an historic upheaval. In a sweeping ruling that overturned a half a century of precedents, 5 justices ended the right of American women to choose abortion under the Constitution.
After 49 years in the cruel slaughter of more than 63 million unborn human beings, the U.S. Supreme Court has finally reversed its deadly 1973 decision, Roe versus Wade, a ruling that invented a so-called right to abortion.
Roe versus Wade, when it was first established, I think caught some people by surprise because many felt that it was wrongly decided and wasn't really a strong judicial philosophy that undergirded it. And so I think there are many people in the pro-life movement and even Americans that might consider themselves pro-choice have felt that this case has necessarily needs to be overturned because it actually has been a bad precedent and is not rooted in strong judicial philosophy.
We've seen the left and the pro-abortion crowd argue that abortion, as we understand it for the last 30 years, is settled law. Nothing can be done about it. Well, there is no such thing as settled law when a court is wrong. And the Supreme Court has been wrong.
By overruling Roe, the Supreme Court has finally rejected the illegitimacy of legislating through court decrees and returned us to the text of the Constitution itself.
This whole issue of abortion needs to be sent back to the states. The states have a lot more leeway, even under Roe, to regulate abortion than they've been allowed to up till now. And that would mean that this battle over abortion would now be fought out in every state around the union.
Well, I'm not surprised. I'm very hopeful. And this is something that Christians and pro-life Americans have hoped and prayed for. And it will be almost 50 years. That's a very long time for a horror like abortion to be institutionalized nationwide in the United States simply by an out-of-control activist court. And one of the things we need to note is that the court will be doing the country no favors in this. It will be righting a wrong, but it was the court's wrong.
I believe there's actually a right to life in our founding documents. I think you can interpret that from the wording of our Constitution, and I think our Declaration of Independence, particularly the second paragraph, where it says that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these, the right to life. I've always thought that was a remarkable thing that our founders, even before there were sonograms, understood that without the right to life, the other rights are sort of beside the point.
The justice's decision to overturn Roe came by way of a 5-4 ruling in the case Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization.
We were really struck by this case that came out of Mississippi, the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, for numbers of reasons. This case specifically was asked by the people of Mississippi to challenge Roe versus Wade.
I love what I heard in the oral arguments at the Supreme Court. The liberal justices had such an insanely weak defense. I'll give you an example. Justice Breyer talked about how, well, what about law and order? We can't have law and order if we don't have stare decisis. Stare decisis is where they look at previous laws and precedent and say, well, we're going to base this ruling on this precedent. Well, there have been many supremely wrong precedents. And so Justice Breyer's assertion that somehow we lose law and order if we don't hold on to these precedents is nonsense.
As the arguments unfolded, as Amy Coney Barrett started talking about adoption, as Justice Roberts was asking about, well, is there any place we can draw the line other than 24 weeks? And the pro-abortion side was sort of refused to allow anything like that. As Justice Kavanaugh talked about previous Supreme Court precedents that have been overturned, including the Supreme Court's ruling in the late 19th century that segregation is okay, I began to grow more and more hopeful.
While the court officially released its decision to overturn Roe at the end of June, an early draft of the decision was leaked to the public in the beginning of May. This sparked violent outbursts across the nation.
An armed man arrested outside Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home and charged with attempted murder after allegedly threatening to kill the justice.
This scary incident last night, another sign of the threat environment these justices face and of how unhinged the debate around the court has become.
18 Christian crisis pregnancy centers were firebombed or otherwise vandalized following the leaked decision. But this violence from the radical left is no surprise when you have people like Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer seemingly calling for it in broad daylight.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind and you will pay the price.
I think we're going to see hysteria from the radical pro-abortion fringe. Abortion has become a kind of religion to some in this country, where it is sort of the mark of whether or not women are free and whether or not we can prosper, which is such a tragedy and injustice to see our empowerment and advancement through the lens of killing. Somehow we have to kill a child to succeed, to achieve our dreams. No authentic advancement was ever won on the body of another, by killing or harming another, especially a child, especially your child, your son or your daughter.
I think it's going to look very chaotic for a long time. For instance, Americans are going to be able to say, well, you had a state like Oklahoma that legislatively banned all abortions. You can look at states and, it's very much a matter of red states and blue states. It's not absolute in the overlay, but it's the closest thing to it. And you're going to see states like Illinois, California, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, that are moving in the most liberal directions possible. And so it's like we're going to be in two Americas on the abortion issue.
While overturning Roe is a great victory for the pro-life cause, the battle for life is far from over.
Several things are going to happen. Number one, Democrats in the Congress will seek, as we've already seen, to legislate Roe. But even when they did that, the Schumer-Pelosi bill was even more radical than Roe. And then state by state, it's going to be an enormous battle. And it's because the logic of worldview works its way through. And so the logic of the pro-life position works through, thus Oklahoma. The logic of the pro-abortion argument, it works its way through, thus New York, California, where frankly they almost pay for any abortion and are actually talking about paying for abortions from people out of state. So this is going to be a monumental task. It's a long faithfulness. I think those of us who hold to a biblical worldview and even just the storyline of Scripture are reminded of the fact that there are no permanent victories in this fallen world. And I think that there are going to be two responses Christians are going to be tempted to kind of step into after Roe. One is celebration as if the battle's over, when actually the hard part is really then beginning, and that's convincing Americans state by state that we're going to have to uphold the dignity and sanctity of every life. I think there are also some real dangers that Christians, after Roe v. Wade is reversed, and then abortion's not over coast to coast, they think, what were we fighting for all these years? And so I have to worry about Christians who are overly elated as if the battle's over, and those who will be, I think, quite genuinely depressed because there's a long battle ahead.
Killing a child at any age is wrong, but to empower the state to protect at least more babies is a step in the right direction.
I'm going to work to make sure that all 50 states get rid of abortion, but it's okay if states are different. That's how things have always been in America, that we didn't have a national law that imposed a national position on everybody on every issue. Nations fracture when you do that because people are different. I mean, it's a huge country, and the idea that people living in the Mountain West are going to be the same as people living in Rhode Island, well, it's just you can't expect that, and our founders didn't expect that, even in a smaller territory, and so that's an important part for people to understand, and the left doesn't like that idea. They want people to conform to their ideology. They are not for freedom of religion, they are not for freedom of conscience, they are not for freedom of anything. What they are for is the freedom for them to impose on you what they think is best. That's their freedom.
It's really important for those of us that believe in the sanctity of life to do everything we can to build a culture of life And there are a number of ways of doing that. Maybe one of the most important things of all is to teach our daughters and our granddaughters that to be a successful modern woman, you do not have to buy into the idea that you should destroy your unborn child. That's a horrible thing, but that's something that a lot of young women are being taught, that they can't fully reach their dreams and be all that they want to be as a young woman unless they fight for this right to abort their babies. That's really an evil thing for our daughters and granddaughters to be taught, and as parents and grandparents, we can overcome that.